When it comes to guitar and guitar music, it's hard for players to not get inspired these days. There's so much talent for us to observe and consume, and the internet made it easy for us to find these players and consume their material. And it is because of this ease of access, however, that some players tend to fly under the radar. And the guitar player I'm going to talk about in this video is one of those players. He's such a big influence on me that he's represented in nearly everything that I play. I am Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, and this is Unsung 6-String Heroes. Roy Buchanan was born in Ozark, Arkansas in 1939. His father worked on a farm, and his mother, Minnie, took him to mixed-race revival meetings where he first got introduced to music. His professional career began when he was just 15 years old, where he worked as a sideman in Johnny Otis's Rhythm and Blues Revue. His recording career began in 1958 when he played the guitar solo on My Babe for Dale Hawkins under the Chess record label. Roy would also work for Dale's cousin, Ronnie Hawkins, where he mentored and tutored the future guitar legend, Robbie Robertson. He would go on to work as a sideman throughout the 60s. He would eventually leave the music industry for a time to support his growing family. In 1971, however, a PBS documentary called Introducing Roy Buchanan aired, which landed him a record deal with Polydor Records. He would release 4 albums under that label. Another big break came for Roy in 1977. On the second season of the now legendary Austin City Limits program, Roy Buchanan made an appearance that has left a lasting impression on guitar music. He's so laid back on this performance, it's hard to tell if he is just shy or naturally comfortable in front of an audience. Everyone mentions his cover of Hey Joe, but to me, the best performance is of his own tune called Roy's Blues. It really opened my eyes to what a Fender Telecaster can do. In this roughly 8-minute performance, he demonstrates every Southern guitar technique in the book, from pinch harmonics to chicken picking. It is truly something magical. My favorite part is when he's just flicking the strings with his index finger and giving a somewhat wry smile. He knows that he's on fire and he's about to do something wild, which he does here. If you haven't checked out Roy, this would be a good place to start, either watching the performance here on YouTube or listening to the live album. As far as records that I would recommend from Roy Buchanan, you can always start at the beginning, and the beginning began with his self-titled debut album. The songs to check out from that specifically, you have to listen to The Messiah Will Come Again. I think that is a masterclass in phrasing. I think, wow. The things he was able to accomplish on that song, the overall feeling of it, the sort of religious symbolism in that spoken word beginning, just the bending that were they're almost at in tune, but they're still kind of out of tune. it's just wild. I would also check out the song Pete's Blue for those of you who are more inclined to that blues kind of a thing. That's a good representation of his, I guess, his overall style or the sound that he would be most known for. I would also check out the second album, his called the second album. From that album, a song that I particularly dig is a song called Five String Blues. So much so that I occasionally perform it on my live streams musical hangout every week. That song is a good example of his use of swells, kind of what we were talking about earlier. And again, it's a nice blues song in a minor key, so if you are more inclined to the blues, that would be a good song to check out. But there's also some more fun stuff on there, like Filthy Teddy is a fun song. As far as live albums go, I would strongly recommend it came out in 2013. It's called Telemaster Live in 75. I don't think his playing got better than it did on that. Whoever found that performance and dug it up and remastered it, like, deserves some kind of an award, because it's Roy Buchanan. I mean, he was always great. He's better than you or I, but that performance, everything on there, even the live performance of The Messiah Will Come Again. If there's one performance of that song that gets better than the original performance on that first record, it's this one. What else is on there that... Change My Mind. Can I Change My Mind? Is a great... it's a long song, and I forget the name of the singer on that song for Roy Buchanan, because he obviously wasn't the best singer, and so he would bring up a guy to come sing. Somewhere on the screen will be that singer's name. But the vocal performance on that song by him is awesome, and the guitar playing by Roy Buchanan, it shows that he could have been... If he wanted to, he could have stepped outside that country blues kind of a thing, or country music kind of a thing, and done something more poppy sounding. I mean, of course, this is pop music for the 1970s, not by today's standards. In any case, the guitar solo on that, and some of the ideas that he came up with, just not only in that song, but throughout that concert. I mean, the things that I heard and learned while listening to this record, and each time that I go back and listen to it, good night. For gear, Roy kept it simple, just a 1953 Fender Telecaster into a Fender Vibrolux amps with the tone quote-unquote full out, which I assume means he just dimed everything but the reverb. Most of his nuance in his tone come from using the volume knob and tone control knob on his guitar. He's famous for his tone wash sound, volume swells, and chicken pick, and he also made excellent use of double and triple stops. Beyond this setup, he did use a Les Paul with P90s from time to time. I believe this is mostly during his early years as a sideman. Most people remember him for the Telly, though. As far as pedals, he got into the pedal game late. Around 1976, he started to use the Echoplex, and in the 1980s, he would use the classic Boss DD2 delay, but that's about it. So why do I like him? There's a certain attitude that he has when it comes to his playing. I mean, you see it in guys like Jimmy Page or Stevie Ray Vaughn or Eddie Van Halen, guys like that, they kind of just wear it on their sleeves. I think Roy, and I would use the Austin City Limits performance that we talked about. I think he's a bit more subtle. There's a certain like wise ass charm to it, and I just find that refreshing. And also, these guys, like, well, maybe not so much Stevie Ray Vaughan, but for sure Eddie Van Halen. A lot of guitar heroes really kind of experiment and change their sound. Like there's an evolution that you can see if you go back and listen to, the beginning all the way to the end of their careers. Roy did not. He found a style of play and like stuck to it, and only changed it slightly. With adding the Echoplex delay or the Boss, delay. Things like that, but by and large, his playing style was the same, and like that. And that's not to say that he wasn't playing sophisticated stuff. I mean, the hybrid picking stuff and the chicken picking stuff. Somebody that it uses those techniques, it can be a little difficult to get those under your fingers. But at the same time, I think one of the things that makes Roy's playing, in addition to the attitude, so good, is that it was so, in a strange way, so simple. I think today, especially today, it's so just, there's so much focus, in my opinion, there's too much of a focus on learning technique, and people get obsessive over learning this scale for this chord change and things like that, when you have guys like B.B. King or Roy Buchanan that they kind of just played by ear, or Slash, even from Guns N' Roses, also comes to mind, where they have such a good ear, and they just have the feeling, they know where they want the music to go, and they're not afraid to let the music take them where they want to go, and I find that endlessly refreshing, and those are the players that I find myself being most inspired by, is the guys that maybe didn't have an encyclopedic knowledge of music theory and, chord theory and things like that. And maybe they only knew like the minor, major, pentatonic, and like blues scales, but were able to come up with some of the most amazing guitar playing you've ever heard simply because of feeling. And I think it's something that is, again, with the advent of the internet, there's so much instructional material out there, and it's, in some sense, you can't teach feeling. But that's what sets these guys apart to me. I mean, then I don't want to, destroy or, discourage people from learning advanced techniques and things like that. But to me, when I look at guitarists on the internet, I think Tim Henson from Polyphia, who is an extraordinary guitar player, but he's a good example of what I'm talking about, where there's this overemphasis of technique, as opposed to just, sticking with things like the pentatonics and bending, but, learning how to, make your voice stand out with those techniques. Those simple, the basic techniques, like the foundation of rock and blues guitar is those things. And, getting a firm grasp on those and really mastering those and not being afraid to, I think, even it's just something I find myself doing as I'm practicing or performing on live streams and things like that, where sometimes I get so hyper-focused on, like, trying to, like, do something technically impressive that the feeling of what I'm trying to convey is lost. And a lot of, art to me is about feeling, and you can really say a lot on the guitar and convey a lot of emotion in your playing by, not focusing too much on technique. While it is important, I think there's an overemphasis on technique, when I think most of the emphasis should be focused on your phrasing and how you play something, not so much what you're playing, technique-wise, scale-wise, what have you. And all that to say that Roy Buchanan, I think, would be the poster child for that example. I mean, he's slightly more technical of a player than I would say B.B. King, just because of some of the hybrid picking and stuff like that, but he's not like Eric Johnson level hybrid picking, or even Greg Hawk level hybrid picking. Those guys are both very technical players, but at the same time, they know how to convey feel. And so when I look at guitar heroes or guitar players, unsung heroes, or ones that everybody's singing their praises, how they play something and the feeling that they bring to their instrument is something that I'm looking for more so over technique or anything like that. Technique you can teach. I can sit down, and teach somebody how to do hybrid picking or chicken picking or tapping, which Roy did do, by the way. A lot of people kind of shine the spotlight on Eddie Van Halen for his tapping, but there were lots of guys that were doing tapping before Eddie did. But it's the way Roy would use tapping was a lot more subtle than the way Eddie Van Halen would do it, where, a good example is Eruption, where it's these long, drawn-out tapped passages. Roy would use it a little bit more subtly, and I think that's really hip, just knowing you have the ability to do something really, a technical marvel like a long tapped-out passage, but choosing to, be meek and kind of restrain that, because it gives your audience, it's a great way to establish rapport with your audience, because they want to see that kind of stuff. And, if you tease things, it can be a lot of fun. And so that, in a long, drawn-out way, is why I like Roy Buchanan. Hey, another edition in the Unsung 6-String Heroes video library. Thank you so much for watching. It really does mean the most. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like. Even more so than that, in addition to that actually, would you consider subscribing? Would make me very happy. I'm enjoying making these videos. They're a lot of work, but they are also a lot of doggone fun. If you would also consider following the links down below to give me a shout on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, things like that, that would also be awesome. Stop in, say hi. There's all sorts of cool stuff to observe there. Would also appreciate it if you would follow the other link to my latest album called Imaginary Songs. There's definitely some Roy Buchanan inspired guitar playing there that you'll want to check. I mean, it's more original to me than what you saw earlier in this video, but in any case, you'll want to check out that. You'll also want to stick around here for Musical Hangout, the live music experience of this brand new year of 2024 that all your friends are talking about, and they're driving all the women crazy. Until next time, I'm Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, signing off, reminding you that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Bread is bread, cheese is cheese, praise God.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.